Thank you for inviting me to be here with you to provide a welcome and a blessing for this very important meeting. I commend each and every one of you for coming here together. I raise this sacred medicine, the medicine that sage, the medicine of sage that represents women, the medicine of sweetgrass that represents men, and the medicine of tobacco and cedar that represents all the communities. And the sacredness of our medicine is so important because we ask Creator to bless this meeting, to bring peace, to bring strength, to bring wisdom, and to bring love to the hearts of everyone who is gathered here, and to the minds and to ears of everyone who is listening. So to you, the Jewish community, I raise the sacred medicine to your people. Chimigwej. Chimigwej kwe kakina. Migwej kibijan oma. Eneshnabe eki omama wenenewag. Bonjour à tous. Bienvenue à la terre.
Morning. Welcome to the ancestral territory of my ancestors, of the Algonquin Nation.
I was proud to bring greetings and welcome each and every one of you beautiful people to this unsurrendered homeland of the Algonquin people. The homeland that has been entrusted onto us since time immemorial, and we must ensure will be here forevermore for our children today and our children tomorrow. And as the sacred medicine of sage and sweetgrass is lit, and the passing of tobacco that will hold our prayers, and the cedar that will protect our prayers, let us come together, brothers and sisters of various titles, various colors, various beliefs. Let us come together in peace and friendship and harmony. Let us come together with one mind, one heart, one spirit, one voice, and one determination. And let us remember the children of yesteryear, the children of today, and the children of tomorrow. For indeed, the work that you are doing on anti-racism, it is to provide a safe and secure and respectful environment for the children, that whereby all children will have the right to be respected for who they are, to be loved for who they are, and to be celebrated for who we are. It is said when we come together to give thanks to our Creator, the one who made all. Our Creator is called by different names. He's referred to as God. He's referred to as Allah. He's referred to however you refer to him in your belief. We refer to him as Gishiminado, the one who created all. Let us put our minds together and let us ask Creator, the one who has made all, to bless this meeting, to bless the work that you are doing. And I say to Creator, Chimigwej, Migwej, 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 Gishiminado, Onje, Kinakego. Migwej. We thank you, Creator, for everything. Das pinigen kokamisag, das pinigen mishomsag, anabigis, ridokwashnang onje, kakina, nongum, ashishwaba, migwej. Let us come together and ask the grandmothers and the grandfathers, all our relations, to come into this meeting, into this circle, and to bless this circle, keep it safe and protected. Let us come together and remember and say thank you to that first mother, the mother for all people, the one who blesses us with everything that we need, from that water life, the plant life, the medicine life, the animal life, all that is above and all that is below. And we say, Chimigwej, Jojoaki. We thank you, Mother Earth. Let us come together and say thank you to that first grandfather, the one who blesses us each and every morning with his breath of warmth. And we say, Chimigwej Mishomiskizis. We thank you, our grandfather, the sun. Let us come together and acknowledge that first grandmother, whose night light protects us, protects our dreams, and watches over our sisters, the stars. And we say, Chimigwej, Kokomistipagizis. We thank you, our Grandmother Moon. Let us give thanks to all who are here together for their love and their kindness. And we ask you, Creator, Nibuksendam Unje Kakina, Minopomadzwin, Eshish Mashkawiziwin, Eshish Sagiedwin. And Creator, my prayer for all who are here, that we acknowledge one another in kindness. My prayer for all who are here, Creator, that you bless them with that good life, with strength. And Creator, we thank you for the love that you've shown us. Chimi, which we remember our relatives in that spirit world, our relatives who walked with us at one time, our relatives who are connected to us through our family and our ancestors, and we give thanks to our relatives. As we acknowledge our relatives who continue to be with us each and every day of our lives here in this physical world, we thank you, Creator, for our relatives, our families, our friends, and our colleagues. And Creator, we put our minds and our hearts together as one, and we remember all those who need a prayer. You know who they are, Creator, and we ask that you take our love and our prayer and comfort their heart. As we acknowledge the people who grieve throughout the world, as we acknowledge the people who seek healing throughout the world, and as we acknowledge one another in this country called Canada, that we live together in respect, harmony, love, and kindness. And Creator, it is only through the sacred gifts of the great 7 grandfathers that you have blessed all people with, that we will make a better day for our children today and tomorrow, and that will be no place for hate or racism, but only kindness and love. And we acknowledge those 7 grandfathers whom we call love, wisdom, respect, courage, bravery, humility, and truth. And my prayer for all who are here is that you continue to keep them safe and bless them with kindness and love. Thank you, Creator, for hearing all our prayer, and thank you, Creator, for blessing my prayer for all the people who are here. Chimigwech, migwech. Thank you. Chimigwech. Thank you. Take care.
Miigwech. Et merci beaucoup, Aîné Commandant, pour cette
Commander, for this wonderful prayer.
and for joining us at this virtual summit today. The Government of Canada is committed to take immediate steps to combat racism and discrimination and to create a safer and more inclusive Canada for all. That is why the Federal Anti-Racism Secretariat is launching an Anti-Racism Summit series. The Federal Secretariat is responsible for leading a whole-of-government approach to working with all federal departments and institutions to combat systemic racism, discrimination, and hate. And we can only play this critical role by working with you to inform government policies and priorities. That is why the Summit Series is bringing together diverse groups of community and political leaders, academics, activists, and members with intersectional identities from racialized communities, religious minorities, and indigenous peoples. Together, we will continue charting a path forward to combat racism and discrimination. The Federal Secretariat recognizes the urgency of boosting concrete action against anti-Semitism, as the explosion in hate incidents and hate crimes targeting members of Jewish communities is showing that the time for action is now. We see this summit as an extension of our ongoing work across government and beyond to combat anti-Semitism. So today, we will be taking the necessary time to continue charting a path forward towards eliminating anti-Semitism and hate in Canada. To continue the government's work on combating anti-Semitism, today's National Summit is convened by the Honourable Erwin Kotler, Canada's Special Envoy on preserving Holocaust remembrance and combating anti-Semitism, and also the Honourable Bardis Chagger, Minister of Diversity and Inclusion and Youth. Through this summit, you'll be helping legislators, policymakers, and program administrators better understand the pervasiveness of anti-Semitism in Canada and identify actions the Government of Canada can take to address key issues facing Jewish communities. Et aujourd'hui,
We have a full day today. It will start by a special message from Minister Bardis Chagger, Following that, Senator Mark Gould and Honourable Carrie the Gould, Minister of International Development, will take the floor. And the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. After that, our summit's host, Honourable Erwin Kotler, Special Envoy, will lay the groundwork for today's discussion. There will be two roundtables today. The first will be titled Fighting Anti-Semitism and Hate, and the second, this afternoon, Promoting Education and Awareness at the national level.
We will then hear from ministers and other representatives of the federal government who will respond to the recommendations, followed by a live discussion with those who joined us. The open discussion will be on enhancing community security and combating online hate and on building vibrant communities. Together, we will hear directly from you about tangible ways the government should implement its policies and programs to combat anti-Semitism in Canada. There will be a third opportunity for you to share your thoughts with us on the topic of intersecting identities before we bring the event to a close. And so now it is my distinct pleasure to welcome the Honourable Bardish Chagger, Minister of Diversity and Inclusion of Youth. Minister Chagger, over to you.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you, Elder Commanda, for always starting us off in the right way. I'm joining all of you from Waterloo, Ontario, on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Neutral Peoples. I want to start off today by thanking all of you for participating in today's important conversation here at the National Summit on Anti-Semitism. I also want to thank my Cabinet and caucus colleagues for joining us here today, and of course, the Honourable Erwin Kotler, Canada's Special Envoy on preserving Holocaust remembrance and combating anti-Semitism, for convening today's summit. This summit will be an opportunity for community members to speak directly with decision makers, including in a closed-door environment, to ensure the safety of those participating. We are here to speak about how we can combat the anti-Semitism that plagues our neighborhoods and our communities. I know that our conversations today will be productive and powerful in reaffirming our commitment to building a consciously more inclusive Canada. Through these conversations, we'll be able to turn more ideas into actions that we can take in the short term to stop these attacks and incidents and to ensure better safety. And in the long term, what we can do to make sure we're building a country that not only says we're diverse, but actually has policies that reflect that. By being here today, we are saying that we believe in the opportunity to build a better Canada, a better world. We believe that we have an open, welcoming, and truly inclusive society if we are willing to strive for it. The
work you carry out in your communities, the measures you have undertaken to denounce and fight anti-Semitism, hate, and violence against color and religion, that's an example for all of us. You should know that the government of Canada is on your side and that we are fully committed to fighting anti-Semitism and all forms of racism and discrimination in Canada.
Build on the progress that we have made together and set a course for further action. During the cross-country consultations to inform the development of Canada's anti-racism strategy, we heard and acted on your calls for the adoption of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. We understand that words matter. When it comes to promoting inclusion and combating discrimination, the ERA definition of anti-Semitism enables us to have a common understanding of what anti-Semitism is and how it manifests itself. This in turn enables the development of measures and policies to fight it. Canada has been a proud member of the ERA since 2009 and acted as its chair from February 2013 to March 2014. Our membership in ERA provides Canada with the opportunity to work internationally with government officials and experts to combat anti-Semitism. In November 2020, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau named the Honourable Erwin Kotler as Canada's Special Envoy on preserving Holocaust remembrance and combating anti-Semitism. Strengthening of Canada's implementation of the ERA definition of anti-Semitism is a core component of his mandate. Further, the Federal Anti-Racism Secretariat uses the definition of anti-Semitism in its engagements with Jewish communities and its work to tackle anti-Semitism. Nous soutenons également.
We also support 95 projects worth $15 million in the framework of action against racism. 21 of these projects are aimed specifically to hate online, where we know anti-Semitic messages continue to be broadcast.
The Canada Task Force on Online Anti-Semitism, a project by the Montreal Institute for Genocide Studies at Concordia University, which will produce recommendations to help major social media and tech companies make changes to their policies and develop new tech solutions to combat anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial, and fake news online. Another example is a project from the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs called United Against Online Hate, which will develop a national coalition with targeted communities to actively combat online hate, following recommendations from the study conducted by the House of Commons Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights. Nous savons également.
We also know that online platforms such as Twitter, YouTube have become elements that are more and more significant in terms of participation in our democracy and public life.
Many positive benefits of the internet and connective technologies, we must also acknowledge the negative impact of online hate and abuse on individuals and communities at home and around the world. Let us be clear, nothing can justify the spread of hate speech, online or in any form. It is unacceptable and it must be stopped. Ce sommet est axé sur le...
This summit is meant to build a better Canada by working together.
Jewish communities and to take back these insights to create concrete and effective actions to fight anti-Semitism wherever it occurs in Canada. Votre engagement,
our commitment, based on your experience and your will to openly share, and this is very important for our success.
Today, for your participation and for your commitment to building a better, safer, and consciously more inclusive Canada. I've got my pen and paper ready. We will be taking notes and listening and engaging. And next, I would like to introduce the Honourable Mark Gould, who is the senator that has done tremendous work prior to becoming Senate. And I do want to thank and acknowledge his efforts thus far and my commitment to working with him as we build an even more inclusive Canada. So over to you, Senator Mark Gould, to say a few words. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Minister. Let me begin by thanking you and my old friend Erwin Kotler for this wonderful initiative, which we all hope will bear fruit. The late great scholar Robert Wistrick called anti-Semitism the longest hatred, and indeed it is so. It's deeply embedded in our world history and in the cultures of the world. This summit, as I understand it, is designed to bring together legislators, policymakers, program administrators, along with community leaders and experts from across this country to explore ways that together we can combat anti-Semitism in all of its very diverse forms. And in that regard, I cannot think of a better group of community leaders and experts to be assembled here today. And you'll allow me the pleasure of saying that I've worked with so many of you as colleagues, and I count so many of you as friends, that it's quite thrilling for me in this new role to participate with you in this. And I know that the frank, and I hope candid expressions and points of view that you will transmit will be, I know they'll be useful, I know they will be heard, and I just want us to use this time productively. Permettez-moi un mot en français.
We don't have time for double speak. We must speak openly and frankly.
Yes, anti-Semitism in all its forms is not a job for one summit. It's not a job for one generation, were it so easy. But this is the first step, at least going forward, building on many previous initiatives, of course. So with that, let me just add my thanks to one more person. That's to our Prime Minister, who's shown leadership on this file and in this matter. And on that note, it's a great privilege and an honor for me to invite the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister, to address this summit. And Prime Minister, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, everyone.
Words and for your leadership. It's been an honor to work alongside you every day to build a better Canada, and I look forward to much more work to do together into the future. Special Envoy Cotler, Irwin, members of our caucus, leaders and members of Canada's Jewish communities, politicians of different stripes, and everyone joining us here today, thank you for being here. Today's summit is important, it's necessary, and I'm glad we can all come together to discuss and identify how we can move the dial on combating anti-Semitism. But before I want to begin, I do want to say a few words about my friend, Rabbi Reuven Bulka, who passed away recently. With his kindness, optimism, and devotion, he encouraged people to ask themselves, what can we do to make the world a better place? Certainly his legacy will include National Kindness Week here in Canada. But today and every day, let's be inspired by his memory as we work to build a more inclusive Canada, and may his memory be a blessing.
As you know, over the past few weeks, I have visited several communities around the country to discuss the recovery after the pandemic. Everywhere I go, I share the vision of our team to rebuild a Canada that's even stronger than before, a Canada with a prosperous economy, a Canada where we protect the environment, and a Canada where everyone is respected and feels safe.
We're here to continue to fight and reject anti-Semitism in all of its forms. The rise in hate-motivated crimes against the Jewish community in the past few months is not only alarming, it's completely unacceptable. As Jewish Canadians, too many of you have told me you're feeling isolated and vulnerable. You've shared that this spike in violence and this harassment has left people in fear to publicly and proudly live Jewish lives. Well, every Canadian deserves to be and feel safe. And I want to reassure you that our government will always stand with you against this hate.
When someone is attacked in our country because of their origin, their religion, their skin color, we are all affected. The spike in hate crimes is troubling to all of us, and we will always be there to fight anti-Semitism in Canada and around the world.
No Canadian should ever fear to practice their religion. But of course, good intentions are not enough. We've seen the rise recently in anti-Semitism, but it wasn't zero before. We have seen over the past months, years, and decades, the reminder that anti-Semitism persists and is pernicious. That's why good intentions are not enough to counter them. That's why we have and will continue to fight hatred and division in our country. As you know, we adopted the working definition of anti-Semitism developed by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and we will continue to firmly defend it. In line with our commitment to promote and defend pluralism, inclusion, and human rights, we also appointed Erwin Kotler to advanced Holocaust education to preserve the stories of survivors through younger generations and combat anti-Semitism, amongst other responsibilities. And we're not stopping there. Earlier this year, we listed additional far-right extremist groups as terrorist entities. This will help police forces stop these groups' dangerous activities. In recent years, we also quadrupled funding for the Security Infrastructure Program to help protect communities at risk. In fact, just this morning, we announced that 149 projects representing over $6.4 million have been recommended for development. This is the largest investment for a given year in the history of the program, and it will enhance the security of many synagogues, Jewish schools, and community institutions across the country. With the right investments, we will keep people safe. I remember back in February when I spoke to Rabbi Adam Shire, whose synagogue in Montreal had been vandalized with hateful graffiti. My friend Adam told me about the cameras that were installed with the help of this program, through which a security guard was able to catch the perpetrator quickly before he could do even more harm. All these measures make a real difference in our fight against anti-Semitism. But frankly, in an ideal world, we shouldn't need programs like this. Because in an ideal world, there wouldn't be any anti-Semitism or acts of hatred or vandalism or criminal intent. So yes, we need to continue to do more as a government, but we also need to have this conversation as a society. And that's why we're here today. Because anti-Semitism isn't a problem for the Jewish community to solve alone. It's up to everyone to take on this challenge. We know that these past months have been difficult, particularly with the distress and tension caused by the conflict in Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. Canada stands firm in its support for Israel's right to live in peace with its neighbors within secure boundaries and for Israel's right to defend itself. We condemn the indiscriminate barrage of rocket attacks fired by Hamas into populated areas of Israel, putting civilians and children at risk. We remain committed to supporting progress towards a two-state solution and continue to oppose unilateral actions that jeopardize the prospects for peace. And we will stand firmly with the Israeli and Palestinian peoples in their right to live in peace and security and with their human rights respected. The implications of the conflict also reverberated around the world with an unacceptable spike in anti-Semitism, including here in Canada. In June, Special Envoy Cotler led Canada's delegation at the IRA Athens plenary. He worked with partners to garner unanimous support for a statement on the increase in anti-Semitic violence and hate speech stemming from the violence between Hamas and Israel. Earlier this month, Minister Garneau made an official visit to Israel, and I recently spoke with the new Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, as well as with the alternate Prime Minister, Yair Lapid. I was pleased but not surprised by how warm and constructive these conversations were. We discussed our common goal to build on Canada and Israel's long history as close friends and allies, based on our shared democratic values and the many ways in which our countries can work more closely together, including on combating anti-Semitism all around the world. Même si on souhaite
Even if we strongly want to get rid of anti-Semitism once and for all, today's conversation will certainly not be the last. We will be there to fight against hate and online radicalism. We will continue working with our provincial and municipal partners, and we will always listen to Jewish communities around Canada, because we are always stronger when we work together.
It didn't happen by accident, and it won't continue without effort. Our government will always stand with and support the Jewish community. Today, we're here to listen, and we're ready always to do the work needed and to continue taking action. Together, I know that we will build a better Canada, a Canada where everyone is safe, no matter who they are and no matter where they live, and every Canadian is an active part of standing against intolerance and hatred in all its forms. Merci, mes amis. C'est maintenant.
Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to hand the mic to Carolina Gould that will then introduce our special envoy for preservation of the Holocaust Memorial and the fight against anti-Semitism, Erwin Kotler. Thank you, Prime Minister. It's a pleasure for me to follow you, and I would like to thank you for these inspiring words and your commitment to the Jewish communities here in Canada and around the world.
Minister, for those remarks and for your commitment to the Jewish community here in Canada and right around the world. And I have had the privilege as your cabinet minister to sit in on meetings where you have stood so firmly for Jewish Canadians, but also for Israel in international meetings. And for that, I really do thank you. And I really do recognize the incredible leadership that you have and your commitment to fighting anti-Semitism. I also want to reflect on something that you said that I think is one of the reasons why we're here today. You said that people and Jews across Canada are feeling scared to publicly and proudly live Jewish lives. And that, for me, is one of the reasons why this summit is so important. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful that we are here today. And so I want to recognize your leadership in bringing us together. I want to thank my colleague, Minister Chagger, Senator Gould, and the Anti-Racism Secretariat, as well as Special Envoy Cotler, for putting this together, because no one in Canada should ever feel scared to proudly live their lives publicly. And unfortunately, that's what we're feeling today. As a proud member of the Jewish caucus, and I see so many of my colleagues here online who have been such incredible representatives of the diversity of Judaism across this country, along with Minister Jim Carr from Winnipeg, we know that Jewish Canadians are feeling stressed and scared right now. We hear it from our friends and family. We feel it ourselves. And as I was reflecting on what I wanted to say today, I was thinking about a conversation, one of the last conversations I had with my grandmother before she passed away. And she told me that before her and my grandfather decided to immigrate to Canada, they had decided that they no longer wanted to be Jewish because they were Holocaust survivors and they had lost everything. They had lost family, they had lost their homes, they had lost so much. And in Europe, they didn't feel comfortable, they didn't feel safe being Jewish. But actually, what happened when they arrived in Canada is they felt welcomed and they felt that they had the ability to live their lives as Jews proudly and publicly. And so until she was 96 years old, she had kept this secret. And yet, this is why we're here today, because we don't want anyone to ever feel like they can't live their life proudly and publicly as a Jew in Canada. And it's why having this conversation on anti-Semitism and combating it is so vitally important. And as I was reflecting on the honor that I have to introduce our special envoy, I was thinking about something that Irwin often says. And he often says that anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine when it comes to racism and hatred. And we've seen it in spades, unfortunately, over the past couple of months, where swastikas and anti-Semitic symbols and actions have led and been displayed in acts of hate towards so many different people. And that's why it's important for us to be having this conversation. It's why it's important for it not just to be up to the Jewish community to have this conversation. And that's why I'm also so pleased to see members of parliament, ministers from all walks of life here today, because this is something that we need to do as a government and as a country and as a society. And we are fortunate to have a vibrant, diverse Jewish community in this country that is represented across the country, that is every single industry, and where, who need and should and must feel safe to publicly express their Judaism in Canada. And so I'm hopeful that today's conversation will highlight the pervasiveness, the perniciousness, but also the path forward and how we can work together to combat and end anti-Semitism here at home and right around the world. And so with that, I'd like to thank the organizers for giving us this opportunity, but I would also like to introduce our special envoy, Erwin Kotler. Many of you know him. He's the former Minister of Justice, Attorney General of Canada, and an international human rights lawyer. As a parliamentarian, he advocated for human rights and international justice, including as chair of the first ever Assembly of Parliamentarians for the International Criminal Court, chair of the Parliamentarians for Global Action. As Minister of Justice and Attorney General for Canada from 2003 to 2006, he launched Canada's first national justice initiative against racism and hate and initiated the first ever prosecution for the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda under Canada's Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act. He also helped make the Supreme Court of Canada the world's most gender representative Supreme Court. Erwin Kotler is a Privy Councillor, an Officer of the Order of Canada, an Officer of the National Order of Quebec, and a recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. Mr. Kotler is the recipient of 14 honorary doctorates and numerous awards. He is also beloved by the Jewish community. He's beloved by Canadians, by human rights activists the world over. He's an inspiration for many, and we are so fortunate to have him in this role as special envoy, but also leading this summit today. Erwin, over to you. Thank you so much.
Bonjour à tous et bienvenue.
Morning, everyone. Welcome, Karina.
Not only for your overly generous introduction, pour cette chaleureuse introduction, but for your important remarks and referencing your own experiences and the compelling lessons for all of us. May I begin by commending at this point the Prime Minister Trudeau, Minister Bardas Chagger, Peter Flegel and the Anti-Racism Secretariat and their respective staffs for organizing this timely and necessary set of national anti-racism summits, beginning today with the National Summit on Anti-Semitism. I want also to express appreciation for the Indigenous blessing, Miigwech, and for the Prime Minister's referencing of Canada's Rabbi of Blessed Memory, was also my own personal rabbi and friend, Rabbi Bulka, and the upcoming Kindness Week, which has been inspired by him. Je suis très heureux.
I am very pleased to participate in this common cause that brings us together. The fight against hatred and anti-Semitism, and the fight against anti-Semitism, this is our fight.
We are witnessing and have been witnessing for some time, as the Prime Minister referenced in his eloquent remarks, an old, new, global, escalating, virulent, sophisticated, and even lethal anti-Semitism, which reached its tipping point during the recent Hamas war, where Jews are threatened and targeted in their neighborhoods and in the streets, in the campuses and in the communities, where we have been seeing synagogues torched, memorials defaced, institutions vandalized, and cemeteries desecrated. The whole finding expression in two particularly dramatic developments. First, 2020 saw the highest level of anti-Semitic hate crimes ever reached in the US, Canada, and Europe. But halfway through 2021, we already reached the level of hate crimes reached for all of 2020. Second, we are witnessing incendiary anti-Semitic hate in the social medias Minister Chagger referenced, which also incentivizes offline violence. For example, in 1 week in May, there were 17,000 tweets that, quote, Hitler was right. And a just related study reported just a few days ago reported a seismic increase of 912% in anti-Semitic hate in 1 year on the social media platform TikTok, where 41% of its 1.2 billion users are between the ages of 16 and 24. This pandemic of anti-Semitism, including the incendiary increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes and online hate speech, as I mentioned, are underpinned, disturbingly, by a number of dynamics that are not always appreciated, including, first, the mainstreaming, normalization, and legitimation of anti-Semitism in the political cultures. The absence of outrage, underscored by indifference and inaction. Second, the threat of anti-Semitism to our multicultural democracy. As Ahmed Shahid, the UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom and Democracy, put it, anti-Semitism is toxic to democracies, the canary in the mineshaft of evil, as Karina mentioned, and as we've learned only too painfully and too well, that while it begins with Jews, it doesn't end with Jews. Third is the globalization phenomenon. What happens in Paris, in London, UK, in the US, the threatening and targeting of Jews reverberates and is replicated back in Montreal, Toronto, and the rest of Canada. Fourth is the marginalization of the struggle against anti-Semitism in the necessary struggle against systemic racism. And we must be engaged in that struggle against systemic racism, whether it be racism against Indigenous people, against Black people and racialized Canadians, Asian Canadians, Muslims, but where the evidence has shown, regrettably, that somehow the struggle against anti-Semitism is being marginalized and even excluded from anti-racism education, training, and the like. Fifth is the laundering of anti-Semitism under the cover of anti-racism itself, a process initiated during the World Conference Against Racism in Durban in 2001, which turned into a conference of racism against Jews and the Jewish people, and where today Jews are increasingly characterized as part of the oppressor in the intersectionality discourse, and where the demonization of Israel has reverberated back and engaged the demonization of Jews. And finally, we are witnessing a revival of the old libels such as the Jews as the poisoners of the wells, where Jews, the Jewish people, and Israel are accused of manufacturing the COVID-19 virus, of spreading it, of profiting from it, and even, as we've seen in social media, where Jews are targeted as being and constituting the virus itself. And so the important question, what then do we do? As all of the above makes the convoking of this national summit as timely as it is necessary. May I share with you a set of foundational principles to underpin a prospective national action plan on anti-Semitism, and do so in a series of one-liners for reasons of time. One, we need to mandate Holocaust education and teaching about anti-Semitism in our elementary schools as well as our high schools and beyond. For the Holocaust is a paradigm for radical evil, as anti-Semitism is a paradigm for radical hate. Second, we need to combat anti-Semitism and also Holocaust distortion as part of the larger struggle for the promotion and protection of democracy, equality, human rights, and human dignity in our time, something common to all these national anti-racism summits, and we will have the National Summit on Islamophobia tomorrow. Number 3, we need, and reference has been made to this, we need to enhance the adoption and implementation of the IRA working definition on anti-Semitism, the most authoritative, comprehensive, and international definition that we have, one democratically adopted over a 15-year period and anchored in human rights principles and policy. And we need to mainstream its implementation across all sectors of our society, government, parliament, universities, law enforcement units, and the like. 4, we need to invoke and implement important parliamentary principles and precedents where Canada has played a distinguishable role. For example, the Ottawa Parliamentary Protocol to Combat Anti-Semitism and a little-known resolution adopted unanimously by the Canadian Parliament in February 2015, which established an important principle and precedent in calling upon the Canadian government to make the combating of anti-Semitism a priority in both our domestic and foreign policy. 5, we need to enhance security and protection for Jewish institutions, including synagogues, schools, community centers, memorial sites, and the like, under increasing threat and attack. And I appreciate the important and timely announcement made by the Prime Minister in this regard in his remarks. Number 6, we need to combat anti-Semitic hate crimes using the 4 Ps: the prevention of such hate crimes, the protection of its victims, the prosecution of its perpetrators, and partnership between federal, provincial, and municipal law enforcement units, including also learning from the best practices of other countries in this regard. 7, we need to combat the explosive and incendiary anti-Semitism in the social media, which is now effectively a rules-free universe as we seek a rules-based international order by drawing upon the best legislative, policy, and regulatory initiatives, including the need to hold social media platforms accountable. 8, a zero-tolerance policy for anti-Semitism in any of our political parties, where political leaders must call out anti-Semitism not only in the other's political party, but in their own, so that anti-Semitism does not become instrumentalized or weaponized as part of political partisanship. 9, we need to appreciate, and reference has been made to this by the Prime Minister and others, that Jews alone cannot combat anti-Semitism, that anti-Semitism cannot be fought, nor can it be won by Jews acting alone. What is needed is a constituency of conscience and action, reflecting the need and the imperative, therefore, for this national summit to combat anti-Semitism. And finally, and I say this as a Canadian for whom the UN is part of my DNA, human rights part of our foreign policy, international law a centerpiece of our identity. We have to combat the laundering of anti-Semitism under universal public values. As former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan put it, and I quote, "A UN that does not put the struggle against anti-Semitism at the forefront of its human rights agenda is a UN which regrettably betrays its past and forfeits its future." In conclusion, may this national summit be not only testimony about anti-Semitism in words, which it is important and what it is intended to be also, but what it is in fact intended to be in the long run, an action summit where words are translated into deeds, and not as a one-time thing, but as an ongoing commitment to the combating of the scourge of anti-Semitism, which affects us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Cotler. And this brings to a close the live streaming portion for those of you following us on social media platforms.